Hey there guys, so today I want to talk to you about entry-level mini PCs. We're about to start off the Black Friday holiday season, and these are always the most popular mini PCs. And it's also one of the segments that has the largest amount of competition. If you just look at all of the popular retail sites, you are going to see that there is hundreds of different mini PCs that all have effectively the same processors. Because when we're talking about entry-level, we're really talking about that $100 to $200 price point, and most of these really hover towards the bottom end of that. Now, it should be noted that in this price category, it is one of those segments where there is so little difference between the performance of all of the different chips here that they can effectively all be considered the same. We're talking about chips like the N95, N97, N100, N150. All of these are essentially the exact same chip. There are slight configuration differences in terms of clock speed and slight variations in terms of the iGPU, though that matters significantly less with these types of systems because of the fact that they're very limited in what they can accomplish with their iGPUs anyway. All the systems in this price tier are essentially going to be exactly the same hardware-wise. The only things that are going to be different are the configuration in terms of the I/O, so how many USB ports and things like that you're going to get, whether or not you're going to have USB Type-C, how big of an SSD you're going to have, and what the configuration hardware is going to be. Overall, when shopping in this price category, I would say that my suggestion is that if you're looking at picking up one of these systems for day-to-day use, as in you want this to be your everyday computer and you just want an entry-level system that you are going to spend as little as possible on, go with a system that has 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD at the minimum. I know it's very tempting to look at the prices of the 8 gigabyte models and the 256 gigabyte of SSD storage, and you start to think, well, do I really need 16 gigabytes? And the truth of the matter is, you might not need 16 gigabytes, but you are definitely going to need more than 8. You might not think that it matters on a system like this, but it actually does make a difference. I have found in testing that the systems that have 8 gigabytes of RAM versus 16 gigabytes of RAM for this specific segment, they end up being noticeably slower, especially in things like Windows Update. And Windows Update is the bane of the existence of these systems. Because they are only 4 cores, 4 threads, essentially just being one little cluster of E cores from Intel, these chips get overloaded very quickly doing practically anything on Windows. If you're trying to just watch YouTube videos or you're trying to open up Plex and watch it on your TV, these systems are great for that kind of thing. And they're more than passable if you're trying to do just one thing at a time as a desktop PC, but as soon as you try to do any multitasking, things really start to fall apart. Having multiple windows open and trying to do multiple tasks at once can very quickly overload a system like this. 16 gigabytes of RAM is going to help in these scenarios, but it is not going to make up for the core deficit here. So for this price category, you really have to set some realistic expectations. Of course, this is for a desktop experience. If you're looking at running a home server, these things are fantastic. Because the truth of the matter is that people were running crap tons of services on systems like the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. And this thing is significantly faster than any Raspberry Pi on the market today. So with that being the case, when it comes to self-hosting, these are really fantastic. Again, that's another scenario where 16 gigabytes of RAM is my recommendation. You can get away with 8 gigabytes, but I think that the extra headroom that you get from 16 is worth it. And I mean, at the price points that we're talking about here, it's an extra $20, $30, maybe even at most $50 to get double the SSD and double the RAM capacity. I think it's just worth it. But as I've said, when it comes to this price category, it really just comes down to the I/O. You are not going to find any system here that is going to be such a significantly better performer than any other. The only time that there is any real difference is when the RAM is having any kind of an effect. That said, also do not consider putting 32 gigabytes in here. I've seen some people that do that. It's very unnecessary. Unless you have a very specific task that calls for that, there just is no reason to do that, especially with current RAM prices. I do want to say that right now on AliExpress is usually where you're going to find systems like this at the cheapest possible price, but there are still some great deals for systems like this on Amazon. That said, this is a price category where I do feel that if you're able to bump yourself up to that slightly above $200 range, you can really find some incredible systems systems. And I mean, that's not even mentioning some of the fantastic deals that were going on at the beginning of this month. And keep an eye out for some of those systems that were incredible deals at the start of the month, because I get the feeling that during Black Friday, we're probably going to see some more stock for those drop. I'm hoping I'm right on that so that people can pick up some fantastic deals. Things like the AM02 were incredible at sub $200 price points for a Ryzen 5 6600H, which is going to smoke any of these systems here any day of the week. Look, at this price tier, I have seen the numbers. You guys are going to buy a crap ton of these. They're very popular. I get that. So what I would say is that don't even bother with any kind of performance charts. There is not going to be much of a difference at all in between any of these systems. So go with whichever ones has the IO that you like. I want to highlight two systems that I like very much in particular. So right here is this Triku system with an N150. What I particularly like about this system is just how slim it is. It's my favorite chassis to essentially pair with a television because it fits so well underneath a TV. It's a great color that is very neutral, so it won't stand out. It'll blend perfectly with pretty much any kind of TV console, and it has a USB-C in the front, which USB-C is something that you don't see in every kind of system that has this hardware in it. So all around, it is one of my favorite systems with this hardware. Another highlight is, of course, the Geekom Air 12 Lite. This system is so incredibly well built. Again, very similar hardware, so performance-wise, it's going to be pretty much identical, but this thing is so well built. It is one of the best built mini PCs that I've ever taken a look at in any price category. I have systems that are 10 times more powerful than this that are not built as well. So Geekom really put all of their effort into just making a very well built, very high quality system. It's very solid. The construction is so well done. The IO really lets you know that they built this thing for people to actually use it. They understand what people want out of a computer. So those two are my absolute favorites right now. I'm going to link down below a crap ton of different systems that I've taken a look at that get my recommendation. So if any of those fit into the IO that you're looking for, by all means go for it, but do not get bogged down on performance differences between any of these systems, because we are talking about single percentage differences that have more to do with Silicon Lottery more than anything else. I mean, the differences are literally just that small. But that said, I am also going to link down below some systems that I recommend that you look at instead if you're willing to spend an extra $50 to $100. They're going to make a very meaningful difference in terms of your experience, and I definitely recommend that if you have the money for that, you bump yourself up. But I'll catch you guys in the next one.